Can we start, Prakash?
Sure, Binduji. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, very carefully and meticulously offered to us by Binduji. And if you want to catch up on the replays, we are on chapter 3 now. The replays are available in Clubhouse. And before chapter 3, they were just numerically, organized as class number 1, 2, and 3. From chapter 3, Binduji has chosen this format. So we are on class 15, chapter 3. I've also shared 3 links in the chat where you can access these talks. One is on YouTube called Advaita Retold channel. The other 2 are on Apple and Spotify. There is also a link provided to a book called The Imaginary Door, published by Artemisia, based on Binduji's insights into Advaita and the earlier discussions in Clubhouse. For housekeeping, I'll close the hand raising in chat when Binduji is offering the class. And after about an hour or so, we'll reopen those channels for further clarifications, discussions. Thank you very much, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste. Hari Om to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamshi Rishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Ch03 Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Guru Ratmiti Murti Veda Vibhagini Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Shri Guru Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyai Savai Vedai Sangapadakramō Upanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgadena Manasa Paschyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam Nabidussura Suragana Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. In the 3rd chapter, we saw that verse number 26, we were told by Krishna not to disturb the ignorant. In the Nabuddhivedam Janayed Atnyanam Karma Sangina. That is what the verses say. Then 27, he mentioned that the gunas are the reasons because of which actions are taking place. Guna, guneshu vartande. But in the case of a jnani who knows this, the guna, guneshu vartande, he sees this clearly in the verse number 28 he has mentioned. Yet Krishna told that because you are being an example for others, you should not unsettle others, those who are not yet ready for that, so that they do not deviate from the path of Karma Yoga. So this balances the metaphysical approach or the truth and with a practical guidance as to how Karma Yoga has to be seen both from the beginner level and from the jnani's level. Even the jnani has to perform actions for the purpose of guiding others, not for his own work. From his point of view, there is no action at all. The ignorant will think that I am acting for result. That is where the Karma Yoga has to come into picture. And the knower sees that the gunesha vartande, they are good at that. That is the function in which actions are being done. I am not the doer. Though neither the doership nor the enjoyership is there in the one who is in the knower of the truth. Yet the knower does not disturb the disciplines of the people who are in the karma yoga path. Katham puna karmanyadhikritena atnena mumukshuna karma kartavyam iti uchyate. So in the verse number 30, which we are going to start today, is where the teaching turns from metaphysical explanation to direct spiritual practice. How it is to be done. The yajnartam karmano anyatra, where we studied that the purpose of the actions have to be done in the form of yajna. How that is to be done. So Krishna instructs Arjuna to perform this action through offerings, all actions to the Lord or the higher pedestal, with whom we have so those who are people who are not theologically inclined, they also can do offer their actions to a higher pedestal, either in the form of a social well-being or a country's well-being or some charitable activity, etc. This is how this action transforms to karma yoga, leading to purification. And Krishna is now telling from his point of view, or how he is instructing Arjuna specifically. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirasir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigajattvaya. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya. That's the first part of it. Having offered all actions unto me. Here Krishna is talking as the Lord and explaining that surrender or offer your actions, Arjuna, unto me. How? Adhyatma chetasa. So this word Adhyatma chetasa, we'll explain it later. It is with the consciousness directed toward the inner self. So here he is talking about the Adhyatma chetasa as the consciousness or the dedication directed toward the inner self. Not only that, virasi nirmamo bhutva. It has to be having two qualifications. Virasi, become free from desire. Asha is desire. Nirasir means without desire, or the fruits of action. Nirmamo bhutva means from the sense of mind that when you are doing the action, there should not be any individuality or ego of mine that this action is mine or this action I am doing for my benefit or this action I am doing for the sake of my family or etc. That my aspect should not come. It should be an act of offering. And Vigadajwara. Vigadajwara. Jwara means, actually speaking, it is fear. But here, Jwara is equivalent to the grief and delusion which Arjuna is already going through. So Vigadajwara means being free from the fever of grief and delusion. Yudhyasva means you have to do the action of Yuddha, or the Yuddha has to be the one which has to be taken up. So there are conditions. These are sadhana, actually speaking, the sadhana for karma yoga. And what is the result of the sadhana? You will be able to perform your action without any hindrance. No, there will not be any deficit in the action. The performance will be efficient 100%. So you remember earlier Krishna had said that karmasu kausalam, yoga karmasu kausalam. So that is the one which is here, that is what is indicated here by the Yuddhasva, prescribed action. The entire verse is a practical synthesis of Karma Yoga teaching directed at Arjuna at a personal level by Krishna himself. Looking at the words, Mayi is, technically speaking, in me, unto me, or upon me, is a locative verb, Mayi, locative word. Renouncing unto me, Mayi Sanyasya. That means offering your action itself unto me. Now the me here, even though Krishna is talking as Krishna, but here Shankaracharya specifically says that Mayi Paramatmani, I am the Paramatman, because Krishna is the knower of the truth. So he doesn't identify himself as a god or a Devata or an Ishvara. He says himself as Paramatma. He is identifying himself to be the Brahman. So when he says Mayi Sanyasya, it is to the Brahmarpanam, that nature. So offering to Brahman as Ishvara. So the Brahman and Ishvara is the one and the same in this context. So Yajñartho Karmano Anyatra was the verse which we started all these discussions, 3.9. Now the same spirit of the offering is now expressed in the most direct and personal form to Arjuna, not offering to a personal, impersonal cosmic principle, but to the Lord directly. The entire verse is thus practical and personal formulation which has been taught abstractly through the Yajna Chakra and Loka Sangrahartham. So that is what the word Mayi, even though it's a very two alphabet word, it is to be taken as word the Lord, Ishvara, which is in the form of Brahman or Brahman as Ishvara, either way. Sarvani Karmani. Sarvani is to show that without any reminder, pointing to the completeness, Purnata, and of the Arpana Buddhi, of offering nature. A partial offering retains a residue of Mamakara. If you are offering not 100%, the balance will be definitely held by the ego, individuality as his or mine. So therefore the Sarvani Karmani, that adjective Sarvani, is to complete the offering, which shows that it dissolves entirely what the karma's impact on the individual when he surrenders that way. Sanyasya is the word, my Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya. So the sannyasa of all karmas unto the Lord is not to be abandoned, but reorientation all actions to the Ishvararpana way. So sannyasa is not a ritualistic, ethical or philosophical or mental mode here, what it is being mentioned here. It is a reorientation of all actions as an Ishvararpana buddhi. And the sannyasa, which is being that, is where Shankaracharya distinguishes this sannyasa from the sannyasa of the jnani, who abandons kartrutva entirely upon atma jnana. Whereas here the sannyasa is karmanam ishvare arpanam, because he is addressing Arjuna. Arjuna is still not yet a jnani. So the offerings of actions to the Lord, which is the karma yogi's inner disposition. The action continues outwardly, but inwardly it is yajñartham. as for the sake of yajna. Not Atma Karanat, not for the sake of oneself. I am not doing this action not for myself, but for the offering, as an offering. I am an instrument to the Lord. That is the way in which Shankaracharya is explaining this in the commentary. Then comes the one word which we need to spend some time, Adhyatma Chetasa. Atma is the inner self. Adi is a prefix. So the moment Adi plus Atma becomes Adhyatma. Adhyatma is pertaining to the Atman, the self or the inner self. So therefore, with the mind oriented towards Atman, or with consciousness directed towards the inner self, this is the Adhyatma. Now, Chetas is the inner awareness, or it can be even the Andakarana level, understanding or the consciousness. So, Adhyatma Chetasa is becoming that the consciousness directed towards the inner self with the Andakarana full attention given towards the self itself. Therefore, having renounced by means of Adhyatma Chetasa, when it is mentioned here, the mind whose domain is Adhyatma, the inner self, is the Adhyatma Chetasa or awareness. By means of that, Shankaracharya reads that Adhyatma Chetasa as the key qualifying condition of the sannyasa prescribed. It is not a mechanical performance of offering, but an inner orientation of awareness towards Atman that transforms karma into yoga. The other sannyasas are external in nature, which in the sense that you are abandoning your possessions, you are abandoning your whole house. All of them are external abandoning or renunciation. But here, Krishna is not indicating. That is why the word Chetas, Adhyatma Chetasa, as used for the renouncing as an adjective. That is to make it clear that the inner orientation of awareness towards Atman. Shankaracharya distinguishes the two levels of Adhyatma Chetasa. For the Karma Yogi, it means awareness of Ishvara as the inner self, to whom all is offered. Why? This is the place where we have to be very careful. He said, Sarvani Karmani, all the actions, eating, sleeping, all actions included in it. That is being offered to Lord. Now, those who are in the ritualistic or theological mind, they will always think there is a place where Lord is sitting, either a temple, church or mosque or whatever may be that belief you have. So they will say that how can I give actions, surrender my actions to the Lord? That is why the inner orientation is very important. And the Lord is not placed in a temple, church or a mosque or any place. The Ishvara or the Lord is within ourselves as the Atman, the inner self. So when we are offering this, all our actions, to the higher pedestal which is present in me as the life principle in me itself, the ego has no role to play at all. It is not to the body, mind and intellect, but to the inner self. So all actions which are being, I am breathing not because I am breathing for the body to be maintained. No. I am breathing because I am breathing for the purpose of the life to be maintained, which is the inner self within. Life is not maintained at the body level. It is that inner self which is the life principle. Even though the expression of life may be seen in the body is not life at all. So that is the reason why this inner orientation of awareness towards the self, inner self, makes the karma, all karmas, sarvani karmani, into yoga. So so thereby all actions become yajnartham. Yoga, your yajna. Yogartham or yajnartham. Meeting, both the meanings are the same. So that is what the awareness of Ishvara as the inner self, to whom all these things are offered. And for the Jnani, it means the direct awareness of Atman as Brahman itself. There is no Ishvara in between for the Jnani. Therefore, the Adhyatma Chetas of this verse encompasses both, but the primary reference here is for the former, for the Karma Yogi, as it is directed towards Arjuna as the Karma Adhikari. So he is the eligible person who is being addressed here by Krishna. Nirashi, Asha means desire. Ashis is the word. Nirashis means without desire. Wish, desire, hope or blessing or fruit, expecting fruit of action. So free from desire for the fruit of action. Without exception of any personal gain from these actions. Totally desireless. That is why the word Nirashi is used. So, when the means, when the desires of fruit is not the purpose on which we are doing the action, we are offering it to the Lord inside. So there is no fruit expecting out of it. Unlike, when we see that, people going to the presence of the temple or God or anywhere, they have a lot of wishes to be fulfilled. I am doing this for me to achieve certainty, or for having my sickness removed, or my child to pass the exam, or my wife to have good health, or whatever may be that. Or all those questions which we will be praying is with the desire in mind. But this here is what is saying, that even we are a karma yogi, we should not maintain any such desire even for a part of the action towards that. So it's an inner disposition of nishkamata, that is freedom from phala kanksha, longing for the fruits of action, which is the positive description of asaktata. We heard the word asakta. So that is the description of asaktata, where we don't have any desire. So Shankaracharya in his Bhashya connects the verses 319 and 325. The same inner freedom from the desire for the results now expressed through the compound as Nirashir. Nirmama. Mama means my own or mine. Again, word the nir is the prefix, which is free from the sense of mine, or without mamakara, free from possessiveness. So, this Nirashi, Nirmama, both complements each other. Together they dissolve the two roots of karma bandha. Asha is the desire for the fruits of action, and mamakara is the appropriation of the results as mine. Not only we desire the fruit of action, but we also, it is my fruit of action. So both these has to be removed from our approach, from the inner attitude. So therefore the complete range of asakti is to be removed. Both asha and mamakara. That is bhutva yuddhasva. Having attained these two, bhutva means basically having become or being or established. Yuddhasva means engage in battle. So this is specifically to Arjuna. Arjuna, please take up your bow and arrow and start the fight, Yuddhasva. But while doing the fighting, don't think you are fighting this for yourself, not for anything to be achieved out of the fighting, like the kingdom or even the victory over the war or anything like that. And don't think that this is my war, I have to win. Even that attitude should not be there. Surrender all, my sarvani sanyasya. Surrender all of them, renounce all of them unto the me, the inner being of all living beings, is what being told by Krishna. And he said that Vigata Jwara. This is specifically to Arjuna, because he has thrown his bows and arrows and sat down with grief and mental agitation, distress, affliction, etc. So Jwara is indicating here that burning affliction, distress or mental agony, which Arjuna has going through. Vigata means gone away or having removed from your mental level. Remove yourself. So one from whom the fever of agony, grief and delusion has rid of the mental affliction. One whom the fever of the grief and delusion has departed. So the twin afflictions that constitute Arjuna's condition throughout the first two chapters, we saw that. So Vigata Jwara as a result of the inner disposition is prescribed in this verse. When sarvani karmani mai sanyasya adhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmama. So when Krishna said that all actions renouncing unto me with the attitude towards the inner beings, the self in me, without any desire for the fruits of action or the action itself, or do not have that it is your action. Exactly. Therefore, the shoka moha, which or the sorrow and the delusion which has been clinging to Arjuna, naturally departs. So, the Bhashya is addressing these things very specifically. Mayi Vasudeve Parameshware Sarvatne Sarvatmini Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Nikshiptya. That is, Mayi Vasudeve, in me, the Vasudeva, renouncing and placing all actions in me, the Supreme Lord, the omniscient, Sarvatne Sarvatmani. Sarvatmani. I am the Atma of all, the self of all. Because Krishna will be later telling this. He is the I am Atma Gudagesa Sarva Bhutashayastita. That he will be telling to Arjuna that I am the innermost self in all creation, whether it is living or non-living. The existence and the Satchit Ananda aspect of every creation is the self, we call it as self. The sannyasa here does not mean abandoning action, but mentally relinquishing the ownership and offering the actions to Ishvara. Thus, the actions performed, but its agency and results are surrendered. Actions are performed, but agency, I am the doer, and phala trishna, or the results are not looked for. They are surrendered unto the Lord, Parameshwara, Sarvatnya, Sarvatma. Adhyatma chetasa viveka buddhya. The mind centered on the self with a discriminative understanding. This emphasizes the inner clarity where the practitioner acts with discriminative knowledge, aware of the distinction between the inner self and the body-mind. Thus, the action performed consciously and not mechanically. Aham karta Ishwaraya Brityetat Karomi Ityanena Buddhya. So, Shankaracharya is explaining what is the attitude you should have. With the understanding, I perform this action for the Lord like a servant for his master. That surrendering is of that nature which is saying. The powerful psychological method. A practitioner adopts the attitude that I am not acting for myself. I serve the Lord through the action. This dissolves the ego, the possessiveness, and the seeking of the fruits of action. Thus, the sense of doership gets weakened by this action. Nirashi Tyakta Ashi means free from expectation, having abandoned the expectation of results. Asha is always expectation of reward. And the practitioner who is offering this from his inner self performs the action without any anticipation of gain. Therefore, karma binding doesn't take place for such a person. Nirmama, freedom from mind, the attitude of mind, mama bhava, sense of ownership. So the practitioner of Karma Yoga relinquishes my action, my result, my achievement. So with that way, both ego and possession get dissolved in this activity. So specific action for Arjuna is Yudhasva, fight. That the teaching is contextual. Arjuna's Swadharma is Kshatriya Dharma. So participation in battle is his Swadharma. Gita does not instruct abandonment of one's role, but its method of purification that the role becomes no more binding you, but emancipating you. Vigata Jvara, free from fear of grief and delusion. What are the grief, anxiety, moral confusion which Arjuna was expressing in the chapter 1 and 2 beginning? So such a psychological turmoil will be absent when you do all actions in the method of offering. Vigata Santapa Vigata Shokasan, free from sorrow of mental anguish. That is, this discipline removes the emotional disturbances, attachment and hesitation, thereby becoming calm, steady and pure. So the Karma Yoga offering dedicate to the Ishvara or Lord. Detachment, abandon expectation of results. Non-possession removes the mind from the equation. Clarity maintains discrimination, and the duty is never abandoned, performs one's Swadharma. Thereby, in the process, the mind becomes purified. The Sattva Shuddhi, purity of mind, the Andakarana Shuddhi, from the knowledge of the self, that leads to Jnana Nishtha, and the Jnana Nishtha alone leads to liberation through knowledge. So, devotion to Ishvara, discrimination of Viveka, and detached action, Nishkama Karma. Together they transform the ordinary activity into a Yajnartham or discipline, spiritual discipline. Next verse 31. Edetet mama matam karma kartavyam iti sapramana muktam tat athada. So in this verse 31, who benefits from the teaching of Karma Yoga given by Krishna? The emphasis on faith, non-evasion of duties and responsibilities, and a faithful practice. How it is to be done is what Krishna is going to explain it. Ye me madamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavando anusuyando muchyante te api karmabhihi. Those human beings who possessed of shraddha, devotion, and free from jealousy, anasuyanta, constantly practice this teaching of mine, they too are freed from karmas. Ye, those who may of me or my teaching here, may is my teaching to indicate that, my may matam, my teaching. Idam, what has been explained here, idam, this very teaching just given, karma yoga with asaktata, ishwararpana buddhi, nirashi, nirmama, adhyatma chetasa, as synthesized in the 30th verse, the previous verse. So, what has been stated in this context is what is that idam. Here, the entire karma yoga teaching, which has started from third chapter, first verse onwards, till the 30th verse. Everything is included in that idam, the word idam here. Nityam, perpetually, always, constantly, or without interruption. Constantly practice this teaching. Anutishtanti is practice. So, nityam anutishtanti, practice daily or practice without interruption. Manavaha, human beings or persons who have listened to this, they are the karmadhikarins, qualified for the karma yoga, who have heard this from my mouth, are the adhikaris or the people who are eligible to perform this action. Shraddhavanta, but they should be having the faith in me, trust, referential confidence or heartfelt acceptance to my words or my teachings. Anasuyanta, asuyanta means to be envious of or to find fault, to be resentful. These are the meaning of asuyant. Anasuyanta means without that, not finding fault, not resentful or free from envy and criticism, etc. Ye manavaha shraddhavantaha, those who are human beings who are having the devotion in me and without anasuya, not finding fault or criticizing. The person afflicted with asuya cannot receive teaching because his antakarana will be covered with dosha darshana. So you need a purity of mind without this envy or finding fault, resentful, etc. All negative thoughts from the mind. The vision of false, which distorts the perception of the pramana, even if it is coming from Krishna. Those who do not like Krishna will not have a devotion or the interest in following his instructions. So a person should not be of that nature. Shankaracharya notes that anasuyanta is the negative condition complementing positive shraddhavantaha. Both go hand in hand, shraddhavantaha and anasuyanta. So that is the fitness of the receiver that allows the teaching to take root and bear fruit. Shankaracharya connects this to the Gita's own statement about whom it might be taught, which comes in the last chapter, 18th chapter, just few verses before the closure. Not to those who are envious about me or the inner self. Muchyande is, they are liberated, they are released. The liberation is not a self-produced practice but comes to them as a natural and inevitable fruit of faithful practice. So the complete and final liberation from samsara is muchyante, what is in. Even karma yoga, even though directly doesn't produce moksha, but it leads to the shuddhi of the andakarana and jnana nishta, which follows it, from which follows the moksha. Te api is a beautiful combination of words, even including them, even them. It means those who are, those who have just faith and a clear mind. They also, even though they do not know how to do a karma yoga, but if they are free from the part of asuya or envy or resentful nature of mind or negative andakarana, and if they have a faith, then they also get freed or liberated from the karmas later. From karmas, then the bondages of karma, this is the instrument. That is from where they are freed from this. So Shankaracharya says that Shraddhavanta and Asuyanda are the receiver's qualification for this advice. And they are not accidental qualities, but direct expression of sadhana chatushtaya at the level of karmadhikari. So only when you have the faith in the Veda and the Ishvara, you will take up your yama niyama, etc. And that will give titiksha in your mind. You will be forbearing. So when you are forbearing and patient, you will not develop the resentful mind or envy or jealous, etc. in your mind. Together they create the andakarana that is receptive rather than resistant to the teaching. And it is the reception of nature of andakarana that the teaching takes root, produces the transformation of effect in the form of asaktata, from the detachment in the form of towards actions leading to the fruits of actions. And thereby he will be moving more toward the jnana nishta. Nityam anutishtanti is to be one important aspect. The continuousness that characterizes the genuine karma yoga. It is not an occasional practitioner who performs yajna on festival days or other times. But Atma is sandata chari. It is always there with us. Our self cannot be without us and it enjoying. It is the self which is always one, which is always with us. So to do a karma yoga is so easy when we are surrendering to the self. The actions without expecting the fruits of action by mere shraddha and anasuya. That is the qualities of the mind. So Lord's teaching as a comprehensive way of life. The Nityam points to the conversion of the entire Vyavaharika existence into a Karma Yoga. That is why Sarvani Karmani was mentioned. Every action in every circumstance performed as Ishwararpana with Nirasha Nirmama. That is without fruits of expectation and no sense of ego. This is the sadhana that genuinely produces Chitta Shuddhi leading to Jnana. Now, Te Api is for Shankaracharya an expression of Lord's Karuna, compassion, and Samanyata, universal availability of the path. Api means even they, is an assurance directed at ordinary practitioner who may doubt whether karma yoga, which does not involve the dramatic renunciation of sannyasa or the, jnana nishta, can that genuinely lead to moksha? That is what Krishna says that. The answer is, te api muchyante, they too are freed from the bondage of karma, indicating that the karma yoga path, though indirect, is genuinely efficacious and leads to the same ultimate moksha through jnana nishta, leading through the shuddhi and jnana, chitta shuddhi and jnana, sattva shuddhi. Karma bihi muchyante. He insists that freedom from the karma through karma yoga operates in two stages. The proximity stage is the karma kshaya, the wearing away of accumulated samsara karmas or some karma vasanas, leading to karma samskara getting reduced. Through the Shuddha Nishkama karma, which does not generate new bandha. The pure Nishkama means without any fruits of action when you do the karma. It doesn't generate a new bondage. The ultimate stage is moksha, even though. And through Atmajnana, which is purified through the Antakarna Shuddhi. Karma bhi eva muchyante, freed by karma alone, is not what Shankaracharya is saying that, which would imply the karma yoga can produce directly to the moksha without the need for jnana. Rather, muchyante encompasses the entire path from sadhana to siddhi to jnana to moksha. And therefore, Shankaracharya says the karma yoga has an initiating and purifying force which makes the whole process possible for karma adhikari. The Bhashya says, Ye me madiyam idam madam nityam anutishtanti anuvartante manavaha manishyaha. Those human beings who constantly practice and follow this teaching of mine, matam is doctrine actually. So here it is the teaching of the Krishna as a teacher. It refers specifically to the teaching of Karma Yoga described in the preceding verses. Instruction is not merely intellectual acceptance, but practice. That is why Anutishthandi, Anuvartande. They perform it in action, they live according to the. So Anutishthandi and Anuvartande, these are the two words which is. Basically, they embodied into the life. The teaching must be embodied into the life. Shraddhavantaha, Shraddhadhanaha, possessed of faith. So those who have got trust in the truth of the scripture and confidence in the teacher's instruction. Without such faith, the discipline of Karma Yoga cannot be sustained. If you do not have faith, it will not be sustainable. The faith here does not mean blind belief, but a receptivity toward the guidance of the teacher. Freedom from fault finding, anasuyanda. This anasuya as an absence of jealousy, hostility, criticism toward the teacher or the teaching. Specifically, asuyam cha mayi paramagurau vasudeve kurvantaha. Not finding fault in me, with me, Vasudeva, the supreme teacher. The Lord here is described as Paramaguru, the supreme spiritual teacher. So those who approach the teaching with cynicism, suspicion and hostility cannot assimilate its meaning. Thus, humility is a necessity for the progress. Muchyante te api evam bhutva karmabihi. Such persons too become freed from the karma. That the liberation mentioned here refers to the freedom from binding karma, karma bandhana. and the cycle of action and result, fruits of action, action and fruits of action. Whereas the Karma Yoga removes the attachment towards the action, attachment towards the fruits, and therefore the egoic doership also gets reduced because you don't see the doership existing in such cases. Therefore the karma ceases to bind. Dharma, dharma, akyav. What are the type of karmas which he is saying there? Both known as merit and demerit. Karma known as merit and demerit. And this is from the Vedic angle. So dharmas are meritorious action, adharmas are sinful action. Both produce results and bind the individual to samsara. Through the discipline taught by Krishna, one becomes free from both. Shankaracharya interprets the liberation here slightly different. This verse does not claim Karma Yoga directly produces moksha. Krishna has never said that way. Rather, it produces freedom from binding karma, which leads to purity of mind, readiness of knowledge, eventual realization of the self. Thus, Karma Yoga is preparatory and not final, as per Shankaracharya. Shankaracharya logic unfolds in the following manner. Practice Karma Yoga, do so with faith, avoid criticizing the teacher and the scriptures, gradually become free from karmic bondage. This prepares the seeker for Atma-jnana. And Atma-jnana will give you the moksha. So thus action leads indirectly to freedom by preparing the seeker for the knowledge. Those who faithfully practice this teaching without fault finding towards the Lord become freed from karma. Yes. Okay. So next verse is contrast of what has been told in this verse, which is now just completed. There Krishna describes those who follow the teaching. In this he said about those who follow the faith with faith. And in this one, the 31, the conditions are for those who reject and criticize the teaching of Karma Yoga. What do they go through? Ye tve vadyabi suyando na anutishtanti me matam sarvajnana vimudaha tvam vidhi nashtan chedasa. Ye tu etat abhyasuyantaha me matam na anutishtanti tan sarvajnana vimudan nashtan achetaha viti. But those who find fault in this teaching and do not practice my doctrine, know them to be thoroughly deluded in all knowledge. They will be lost and devoid of understanding. Ye, those who, they, too, but etat, this teaching, this very teaching, abhyasuyantaha. Abhi plus asuyanta, that is finding fault with, resentful towards my teaching, is that finding defects in my teaching. Contrast with anasuyanta, here it is abhyasuyanta, where the faithful practitioner is anasuyanta, the one who has rejected is abhyasuyanta, actively fault finding. So, andakarana dosha, those who have got inner defects or inner organ defects, that makes the teaching inaccessible to them because they have got ajnana samshaya viparya, always not got rid of that. Therefore, they cannot receive the pramana, the validity of the teaching of Krishna, because they approach it with a prior commitment to finding fault rather than with a desire to know and the Shraddha. So this is the Abhyasuyanda. And na anutishtanti. Not only that, they do not practice and do not follow or observe nityam anutishtanti, but they do not follow it daily. But now negated and contrasted in this from the practice. Those who do not practice, because they actively find fault at the teaching and they cannot follow it. Shankaracharya reads the non-practice as inevitable consequence of fault-finding orientation of the antakarana. Because if the antakarana is always in a negative mode, they will find fault in everything. There are people like that. So he is referring to that PP, Abhyasuyantaha, produces Shraddha Abhava. Not they don't have the Shraddha, but they have an absence of Shraddha. Therefore, their Anushtana Abhava also. To what? Me matam, to my teaching. Because of what? Sarva Vijnana Mudan. Sarva means all. Jnana, knowledge. Vimudha means thoroughly deluded or confused. Is those who are thoroughly deluded in all forms of knowledge. Those who are completely bewildered with respect to every kind of knowledge. Because they have doubt in everything. No statement is accepted ever without doubt by such people. Sarveshu jnaneshu vimudhaha. Deluded in all areas of knowledge. It's a philosophically precise and devastating. The person who rejects Karma Yoga teaching through the negativity of the mind is the one who is confused across the entire domain of knowledge. For such a people, Atmajnana is never possible. One who rejects the teaching that leads to Atmajnana is thereby refused by such people, thereby deluded not only about Atman but about everything, karma, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all of them. They don't have a proper understanding of these. Ultimately, which depends upon the correct knowledge of Atman or Brahman. The Vimudha is which we discussed in the previous verses. That's to show the comprehensiveness of the maximum degree of confusion such people have got. Tan Vidhi, Tan means those persons. Understand such people as Ahankara, this thing, like the Ahankara Vimudatman, here Sarvatjnana Vimudatman. Nashtan means they are lost and destroyed or ruined or perished. Achetasa, devoid of understanding, without consciousness or mindlessness, because they don't have the discriminative knowledge. Sarvatjnana Vimuda is exactly becoming the Achetasa. Because Chetas is consciousness or understanding. In the sense, this people who have not got clarity on its Shuddha, Antakarana, they always doubt everything. So they found that they don't find the benefit in the teaching also. There also they find fault only. So in this Etu tad vipiritaha, Shankaracharya says that. But those who are opposite to the previous verse, Abhyasuyanda instead of Anasuyanda. So here, tad vipirita, those who are opposite to that. Etat mama matam abhyasuyanda nindandaha. Finding fault with and criticizing this teaching of mine is hostile criticism or due to jealousy or resentment towards the teaching. Such individuals do not merely misunderstand, they actively disparage the instruction of the Lord. Ye anutishtanti na anuvartande me matam. They neither practice nor follow my teaching. So they do not perform the discipline of Karma Yoga, and they do not live according to the Shraddha and devotion. Thus their rejection is both intellectual rejection and failure to practice. Sarveshu jnaneshu vividam mudha te. They are thoroughly deluded with all respects and all forms of knowledge. So how can they accept the knowledge which is coming in as well, an instruction from Krishna? Their ignorance is comprehensive. By rejecting Lord's teaching, their understanding becomes confused. They remain incapable of grasping the true method of Karma Yoga, and thereby they lack the opportunity to get the true knowledge. Without receptivity to the teaching, knowledge cannot arise, because their mind is dominated by arrogance, hostility, and cynicism. These are the contrasts between the verse number 31 and the current one, 32. The faithful seeker practices teaching. The one who is finding fault or critic rejects the teaching. The faithful has faith in the teaching, whereas the other person is hostile to the teaching, only trying to find fault in them. The seeker, faithful, becomes free from karma because he is following the teaching. The other means remain deluded because he has not even started listening to the teaching. Thus the path of divergence according to the attitude toward the teaching. So asuya and ashraddha, fault finding and lack of faith. These prevent the discipline and understanding and spiritual progress of the people who are deluded in the mind. So those who finally those who follow me faithfully, teaching becomes free from karma, and those who criticize and reject the teaching become deluded. So sarvan vimudan tan viddhi janihi. Know them to be utterly deluded with respect to all knowledge. Viddhi janihi means to understand. They are confused regarding the entire structure of knowledge. Why? Because rejecting the fundamental teaching of Dharma and Karma Yoga undermines the entire path of knowledge, leading to knowledge. Nashtan nasham gadan. They consider them to be lost or ruined, because they are in the path of spiritual ruin. Their discrimination is destroyed. They don't have the capacity for following the path to progress. Therefore, the path collapses for them. Therefore, they become lost in the sense of cutting off from the means for liberation. Achetasaha, lack of awareness or unthinking. Shankaracharya uses this term to indicate the absence of reflective understanding, inability to examine one's own conduct. Avivekinaha, without discrimination. Viveka, discrimination. Aviveka, without discrimination. Between what? Self and non-self. Atma and Atma Viveka. Right and wrong action. Lasting and fleeting results. Nitya and ephemeral. Those who reject that teaching lack this faculty, thus remain trapped in desire, attachment and habitual actions. So, in the third world, 31, description was about the faithful practitioners, while this verse, the 32 verse, is criticizing those who criticize the teaching. Thus, Gita distinguishes between those two people, those who are prepared for discipline and those who are obstructed by arrogance and ignorance against the teaching. So, attitude toward the teaching determines the spiritual progress. A receptive mind develops discrimination, discipline, and knowledge, and a hostile mind develops confusion, rejection, and spiritual stagnation. Therefore, those who reject Lord's teaching are completely deluded and lacking discrimination of spiritual awareness. With this, we have come to a major portion. Now next, Shankaracharya is giving an introduction to why do people act against Lord's instruction and against own dharma? Why should somebody have resentfulness, or why don't they have a faithfulness to the teaching? That is what is being taken up, which we will discuss tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawada.
Thank you very much, Bindoji. I'm opening the chat and hand raising for any follow-up discussions or questions that have arisen from this particular class. So, Venkatji, I'm inviting you up to speak. I'm not sure if you're saying that was a previous hand raising or not, but Namaste, Venkatji.
No, that was the issue with the clubhouse. I tried to turn it off. I tried to turn it off, but it keeps flagging the hand raising. So I don't know how to stop it.
You can't stop it. Just ignore it. That's all.
Yeah. So it was a nice session, Bindoji.
Thank you.
It is navigating so well. It takes away any doubts left. This part.
Right. Even the question which we will be doing tomorrow, why should people have a resentment or lack of faith in the teaching? That is also being addressed by Krishna, so that we should know whether our mind is tilting towards that side or not, which we will see tomorrow.
The darkness which is hidden has to come out somewhere.
Yeah, that is why the Chitta Shuddhi which we said, the latent impressions and vasanas which is there, it is not known to us. Only when they start expressing themselves, we get into a feeling, even then we may not know whether we are under the influence of these latent impressions or vasanas which we are acting. So that is why Tishtada Jagrata, these two words are very important in our spiritual path.
Doji, I have a question, with reference to the karma sannyasa and the jnana sannyasa. You mentioned for the karma sannyasi, the Ishvara is placed between Atman and Brahman. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but in the jnana sannyasa, the Atma Brahma Aikyam is realized, right?
Yeah. See, in the karma sannyasa, what is happening is that karmanam sannyasa. So that is, he is surrendering his actions at the Lord's feet or offering to the Lord. When they do that, they are not abandoning their, individuality or their responsibility, duty, dharma and everything. They are continuing that because they have the doership there in their mind. So that doership, with the doership in operation, they are offering that karmas as a devotion. Whereas a jnana sannyasin, what happens? He has no doership. So when he has no doership, he has abandoned everything else. And he is seeing the self or Atma or Brahman as himself. So there is nothing more for him to renounce for that stage. That is why the two are from two different perspectives.
Thank you, Binduji. That logical correction is so important.
Krishna himself explains this in the later chapters. We will go into each aspect of it very later. It's all coming up.
So all that doubt is clarified through that, right? Through that pedagogical correction. Yes. Thank you, Binduji.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Then let us meet tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. We'll meet again tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. IST for the class number 16. As mentioned, the replays are available. So if you can listen to the replay and come, you'll get a much more clear elucidation of the class as it is unfolding. As always, a heartfelt thanks to Binduji for such a meticulous articulation of Bhagavad Gita. Pranams to you. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat. And thank you all of you for listening. We will continue our journey through Bhagavad Gita tomorrow, same time. Oh, good night.
Hari Om.